This is Mark, and I want to welcome you to this edition of the Fyrian website training. Today, we're going to start talking about event registrations and how to handle those through your site. There's several different ways to do it, and what I want to do with this video is kind of give you an overview of your options. First of all, let's take a look at a typical event registration. What you have to do is start out by looking at what is the critical information that you need to gather from the attendee when they register for this event. Now, that's going to vary based on the type of event that you're running and whether or not you're running multiple events at the same time, and I'll explain a little bit about that later. But the critical thing is exactly what information do we need to collect from them? Do we need just their name and basic contact information as an RSVP? Do we need to collect a payment with that? Is there multiple payment options, meaning do they get to choose between a member rate, a non-member rate, adding certain options to the registration this day versus that day? It depends on how complex your registration needs to be. Okay, so with that, let's take a look at some of the different options that are available. With your Fyrian site, a lot of this is going to depend on whether or not you have purchased the e-commerce module for the system. So if you do not see an e-commerce tab like is highlighted right now, then that means that this option is not available with your current package, and you'll need to contact your Fyrian representative to talk about pricing and how to add it. But if you do see it, then it's a matter of, okay, with the purchases, how are we processing the payment? Are we going to have people pay through PayPal only, or do we have a merchant account, basically a credit card processing account of our own that we're going to hook up to our website through authorize.net? So that decision needs to be made first. And that is really going to dictate your options as far as processing event registrations through your website. If you only have a PayPal account, if you do not have access to a credit card processing merchant account, you're only using PayPal, then basically you have one option, and that is to set up your event registrations as an e-commerce product, and that's what you see here with the Brain Injury Association of Virginia. Basically, each option here is set up as an individual product that they can then come into here, click on, let's say, the caregiver rate, punch in how many tickets that they want to buy at that rate, and click add to cart and add it to their shopping cart. It's basically handled the same way that any online store would handle a t-shirt or a pen or anything that you would buy online. You're treating the registration as a product. Through the system, that's the only way that we can process payments using PayPal, and that's because of the limitations of PayPal. PayPal is what's called a non-seamless gateway, which means that when somebody completes their shopping cart here, they have to physically go to PayPal's site to process the payment and then come back to your site. That's why it's called non-seamless. It's not happening entirely in your site. They have to make their payment on PayPal's site. So that's the reason for that. If, however, you have a credit card merchant account, you have credit card merchant account, you have a couple of other options. You could still do this if you wanted to and treat it that way, but you have an option of using a web form based registration, which is a little bit easier for the user. And to do that, you have to basically decide, okay, are we running one event at a time, or are we running multiple events at one time? If you're only running one event at a time, you can use the booking module that is built in the system. Each booking module has its own booking form, and you can simply plug in the credit card details checkbox in the form builder and then plug in the actual amount that's due for that event, and then change that for each event that you're doing. That's if you're having fairly simple, straightforward stuff that people register for. There's one fee for the whole thing. If, however, you have a more complex event, let's take a look at an example. Let's say your printed PDF registration form looks something like this, where they have to choose between, okay, I'm a member, I'm a professional, so I want this, plus I want to come down here and I want to be a member, so I have to, select yes here, and I'm going to pay for the professional membership, and oh, by the way, I'm also going to put in a donation. Something like this. This is a very complex registration form. There's a lot of options, a lot of things that have to happen here. On paper, this is no big deal. When you get into the world of internet and the websites, there's a lot of programming that goes into building something like this, and that programming can cost money. So there is a way around this so that you don't have to pay a programmer hundreds of dollars to develop a really complex JavaScript based a logarithm to process all these options. You can actually break this down to what are the most critical elements that I need to capture. The way that you do that is you'd actually break up these options into individual registration forms based on a single price option. Okay, so for example, let's just take this top option. We're going to create a form for the 2-day BIA NYS member rate for the consumer. Okay, we're only going to do the one for the consumer here that's $220. All the other ones here are going to be separate forms. What we would do is we would look at this and say, okay, what's the critical information we need to gather here? Well, looking at this form, here's what we would need to gather for that particular form. Their name, address, city, state, zip, work phone, home phone, email address, their affiliation, whether it's an organization or company, are they going to stay for the Thursday dinner, which is on the form, and then what is the total registration amount that's due for that person. In this case, looking up here, that's $220. Okay, now you would create that form and then duplicate that form, changing the name and the price for each one of these options, so you have different forms for that option. And then on your event registration page, you would simply create a link to each form. And I'll cover how to do that when we actually get to the video about creating forms. But that's how you would do it yourself without having to go into coding. The other option is to actually hire a professional web programmer who will custom write a JavaScript code, actually a series of JavaScript codes, to be able to have all of these options on one single form and be able to process the thing all in one go. I can tell you from experience that kind of programming is going to run you anywhere from $200 to $1,000 to have done. So if you can do it yourself, then by all means certainly go ahead and do that. So looking at this, like I said, those are the options. And then your web form for something like that, once you boil it down to a single payment item, okay, gathering the critical information for that payment item, then your web form would actually end up looking something like this, where they would go through and they would fill out their information, basic contact information. We get to phone numbers down here, cell phone if you want it. Word verification, this is basically to help block spammers from accessing the form. And then you've got your credit card processing, name on the card, card number, expiration date, type, verification number, and the amount due. Now in this case, if we were to use that example of that PDF that we were looking at a minute ago, this amount due would be $220. And then also give them the option to subscribe to your email newsletter. Somebody fills this out, they click submit, they've just paid you for that particular registration option. So that's an overview of event registrations. In the next couple videos we'll be talking about how to actually build these forms on an individual basis and how to go about getting that all taken care of. Again, my name is Mark. Appreciate you joining me for this training, and if you want to see other training videos on how to use your Fyrian website, check out youtube.com and do a search for Fyrian websites, Fyrian websites, plural, all one word, in the search box.